Hi everyone, welcome to CI Diaries.
Sponsored by Wayside Publishing. My name is Carrie Toth.
And I'm Kristy Placido. Welcome to episode 5.
Today's episode is called Teaching is a Marathon. And we'd like to talk to you about having the stamina to keep going for the long haul in the classroom.
Right. So why don't we talk about what is a marathon? What are some characteristics of, you can tell by looking at Carrie and I that we're both avid runners. What are the characteristics of a marathon that might compare to teaching?
That you have to, in your training, that you have to focus on the finish, going slow and steady to the finish. It's not a sprint. You can't throw all your energy into those first years because you got to be able to focus on getting to the finish. That it's mentally taxing.
Yeah, and don't you think too, like a lot of, if you're training for a marathon, part of training for a marathon is just literally showing up every day and doing it.
And that there's a lot
of... might not want to show up.
Yes. There's going to be failures. I mean, I'm sure that people that run marathons have times when they don't make it for one reason or another. You know, you have a blowout of a shoe or of an injury or something. You know, there's times when you don't, your year doesn't go the way you planned, or, the last 2 years have been a mess. But that you still, you come back and you try again the next time.
So I think if I were to train I've done a 5K. That's something, right? I mean, I think a lot of it is just
a 5K. I didn't run it.
I think a lot of it is just learning how to build that endurance and that stamina, building your strength and learning about what works well for you, and knowing that you're going to face pain and you're going to face obstacles and it's going to be really hard sometimes, but kind of having a plan for how you're going to work through that.
Yes, I agree.
So we want to talk to all of you about what are the challenges, what are some of the challenges that we've all been facing, what are some of the feelings that we've been having, and what are some things that are in our power that we can do to build our own stamina and our own endurance so that if we want to continue running this race, it's something that's sustainable for us.
And as we talked about this morning, we want to provide you some ideas for things that can help make this more sustainable, but also remember that we understand that we are in a unique place right now at the end of these long 2 years, that just like a marathon runner would know, if they're facing an injury, that if they keep running, they might put themselves out of marathoning for the rest of their lives. We know that some of you are in a position right now with the stress and the anxiety from the last few years. Maybe you need to be out of the classroom. We don't want you to feel like this is saying, hey, you're failing if you have to leave the classroom right now. We understand that there are situations where you can't go back right now. This is for teachers that are really, I need to go back, I want to go back, and I just need some things to make it sustainable. Kristy and I have been in the classroom together for more than 50 years, and so we want to give you some marathoning, not actual running. If you want to run a real marathon, you've come to the wrong place. But if you want to go in the classroom and run that marathon, we think we have some ideas.
Right. So yeah, if you are facing actual physical or mental health issues, we want you to deal with that first. We want you to take care of yourself. But yeah, we want to give you some, hopefully some food for thought that you can reflect on this summer, and just ways that we've found have helped us to just keep this whole car on the road, keep this whole thing going for as long as we have, because teaching is not a sprint. And if you try to make it a sprint, you're going to be like cramping up and laying on the side of the road. So you've got to realize this is a long haul event. This is a marathon, and we're going to try to give you some help as best as we can to help you get through it. So the first thing that I think we should talk about is it's a really huge factor, motivation. And I know for myself, I have felt this year and last year especially, I feel sometimes like I'm losing some mojo that I used to have. And I don't necessarily think it's an age thing. I think it's really it's a, what is it, Carrie? It's like we've been through a lot, and there's so many things taking our attention right now.
And I think that something that was big for me in motivation was that relationship in the classroom. Like a lot of my mojo in the classroom comes from that class community. And when we went in 2020-21 school year, we were hybrid, and I was teaching from home. And how do you build? It was so hard. I mean, we did our best, and I feel like we had as good of a year as we could. But it was so hard to build a class community through me being online and them being half online and half in the classroom. And so this past year, when we did get to be back in class, I built a little mojo back, just trying to, but even still, not being able to do as many games and activities because we still had to have social distance. As the year, as that was lessened, we were able to have a little time where we could be closer together. I could feel it start to come back. So while I think the motivation is a little different person to person, as you get to bring those activities back that feed your mojo, hopefully you can light the fire again a little bit. Because for me, it definitely, and maybe for you too, it comes from that connection with the students. And it was just gone for the 2020-21 school year. And it was hard.
I know I taught in person last year, and I felt like it was really, really hard to build relationships. And I feel like that has always been a strength of mine, making connections with kids. And just the whole, we're wearing a mask, we're social distancing, everybody's in a seating chart. It just took away so many things that I had relied upon to have fun in class and build relationships and those interpersonal connections. And then this year, masks were optional at school, and it was, and I'm not an anti-masker, I don't want to portray that at all, but I felt like when we didn't have to wear our masks, it was a lot easier to build relationships with each other. And it was still like starting out the year, I felt like I wasn't really sure how the year was going to go, and we were still social distancing in the beginning, and we were still, have to stay in our seating charts. And there were a lot of kids in quarantine,
and
all
a
the
lot
time,
of
so it was still really weird. Yeah. But I do feel like this spring was easier.
Yes, I agree. I think that was part of what made this year, I think for me, maybe of the 3 pandemic years, this might have been my hardest of the 3, because I think in 2020, it was a shock, and then everybody was kind of disconnected, and we didn't know what to do, and a lot of kids didn't even do any work during the shutdown. Right. And then when we came back and we were hybrid, we were so, I don't know, I feel like we were so building the plane as we flew that we didn't even have time to register how alarming it was. And it was just fight or flight the whole year. And then in the summer, last summer, I thought, okay, we're going back in person, and even with masks, this is going to be better. Like this year is going to be so much closer to normal because we'll be back in the building. Everybody will be back. And I had set myself up to think it was going to be so normal that then when it wasn't, it was like I got knocked down so many pegs, and there were so many quarantines, and there was so much of, trying to run a Zoom and trying to run a full-time class. And it was a very hard year for me. And I ended up with all these stomach problems, and I was at the doctor's office, and I've never had that kind of physical health effect from teaching before, but it affected me.
Yeah. And I mean, I've definitely gone through some issues too with not only anxiety, depression, but I've had some stomach issues as well. And I don't think we're alone in that. So what do we do as we think about next school year? How do we approach that? We've got a couple months now to kind of get a game plan ready for next year. So what are some things that we should be focusing on so that we can get back in the game again? I think we're all ready to approach this and say, I want to be normal. I don't want to just be normal. Well, I want it to be good.
I know. Well, I think that in helping set the bar at the right level, we're thinking the marathon is sort of a perfect way to look at it, because we can focus on, I'm looking at 3 things I'd like to focus on for next year. I'd like to focus on marathoners do really well when they focus on running with a group, because if you have a group of people that you can lean on, it helps you to stay motivated. So connecting with a group of like-minded teachers who are also really wanting to stay in. Do you remember back to your first years of teaching? I mean, I'm getting so old now, I have 6 years left. Now there are very few teachers left that are my age in the building, And so I remember the older group of teachers when I started, and they sat around and they just complained about everything. And I don't want to be that teacher. I want to still have, this positive. But I remember teachers telling me when I was the new teacher, do not go around them.
Yeah.
Stay away from them, because if you go around them, they will poison you. You will. And so try to stay away from anybody that might poison you with the negativity, and try and just fill yourself up with teachers who will sort of have, if you want to stay in the game longer.
Well, yeah.
Try to fill yourself up.
I think too, there's a fine line between wallowing in negativity and sometimes just needing to vent. So you have to know the difference between those two things. So definitely,
absolutely, because I vent a lot.
Yes,
don't get me wrong.
You definitely need people who will just let you vent and just let you unload. But then talk about, okay, so what are we going to do? What are we going to do to make this better? Find those people.
100%. Because if you're not looking for a solution, then it just becomes this muck that sucks you down. And then it's easy to not be able to see how you're going to make it through, especially, I don't know about every state, but in Illinois, my teaching tier 1, we have to teach 35 years to retire. The tier 2 teachers who started after 2010, they have to teach till they're 65. 65. Wow. From 22 to 65. Can you imagine having your kindergarten teacher be 65 years old? Okay, sorry. I'm sure sorry, if you're listening and you're 65 and you're still teaching, that is because you have a heart of gold and you have energy and stamina and you love what you're doing. But when you think about general population of people, a lot of teachers want out way before that. If you're still teaching at 43 years of teaching, it is because you chose that and you are teaching beyond because you love what you're doing and not because you had to. And to tell every teacher that they have to it's just, it is mind-blowing to think that even people that don't want to teach into the wow. And so we just all all the older teachers here are we just can't believe it that that's what's going to happen.
So I think if you've made the decision, okay, I'm in this, I'm going to I'm going to stay. Like, this is the career that I want. You've got to build some relationships with other teachers that fill your soul as well, because teaching alone does not fill your soul. Teaching really takes from you. So if you don't have people around you that are going to help you fill yourself back up, it's just gonna suck you dry. So like, I have a group of teachers that I eat lunch with every day. We don't go to the teacher's lounge. We go to the library. We sit with my good friend who is our librarian. We've got a couple of younger teachers. We've got our counselor. We've got a couple teachers that are older. I'm older. And yes, we do vent, but we also laugh. And I think that is so important, to just have people that you can have fun with and laugh, vent when you need to, strategize when you need to. So, like, those are your people. You need to find those people. And I also think that it's important to find people who teach the same thing that you teach. And you're probably going to have to go outside of your school, especially if you're in a little tiny school. But
yes,
you're going to have to find people that don't necessarily work in your building, that think the way you think, that have similar goals to what you have. And you're probably going to have to go online to connect with those people. But we have so much technology now, and that's one thing the pandemic has done for us, is it's given us so much access to video conferencing and things like that, that it's not difficult to find people that you can collaborate with that are in other parts of the world. So find your people, both in your school and outside of your school, that fill you up. They're out there.
And that was sort of the second connection to marathoners, from the groups to marathoners also focus on their nutrition. And for a teacher, the nutrition really comes from that PD that we can get through sometimes those groups. If you go into maybe a Facebook group or to an online PD, or even, there are people that are sharing workshops online, and you can go to online conferences, and that stuff is food for your soul and food for your mind. And you can get training, whatever type of curriculum pedagogy you are interested in using in your classroom. And it's available whether you want to get out this summer. Lots of people are ready to get out of their house this summer, and whether you want to get out or whether you want to stay home and get it from an online source, there's so much out there. And that's how you're going to kind of feed your soul and get new ideas. And from those new ideas, then you get a little spark, and maybe that spark will help you with the mojo.
Right.
So we go back to the motivation, and every little spark, sometimes it's just one little thing that I'm like, oh, I'm excited to try that. And then
I think,
that gets you back in with your kids.
I go to the IFLT conference every year, and I know, Carrie, you do too. And I am always presenting at the conference, so I don't always get to see other people's sessions, but I find that just talking to people, just like being with people in that high energy environment, after I leave that conference, I feel, first of all, I'm really tired, but I also I start feeling excited. I start feeling excited about going back to school the next year, because those people have poured something into me that's giving me that motivation, wanting to take these new ideas back to my classroom. And for me, that has been so important, such an important part of my summer. And it's kind of at the halfway point of my summer too. So I have some time to relax and unwind. And then I go get my pump up session at IFLT. And then the rest of the summer, I'm like excited about these new ideas and thinking about what I can do and bring back into my classroom. So for me, that has been a really important component in just keeping myself regenerated every single year.
And it does double duty, because it has that group and nutrition feeling, because you get to be around like-minded educators, and you get to feed yourself with all kinds of new ideas.
Right. And then the other thing that I find is really helpful for me I feel like every year there's like this pattern of you know there's going to be kind of a lull, and you're going to be like, oh, I just got to push through these few weeks. And then there's, kind of that excitement as you approach Thanksgiving, and then you've got like your holiday break coming up. There's a natural ebb and flow to the school year. And we all know that there are these points where it's going to be a low point, and you know that you're going to not be enjoying your job as much during certain points. And I always find that I get into like a rut, and I start to kind of forget. Like, I forget about certain activities and techniques that really could be making my life better. And so I find it's really helpful sometimes to just go and like look at blogs or go and watch somebody's YouTube channel and just remind myself of things that I've enjoyed doing in the past. And so maybe when I'm in a lull, I'll just like, oh yeah, I remember that game that was really fun. I'm going to do that this week. And I'm going to do it in all my classes, and I'm going to play Anne-Marie Chase's Lucky Reading game, and I'm going to play it in all my classes. And it's like, it's just a shot in the arm that gets me through that week. And it's amazing how just putting like thought into one fun activity can kind of make your whole week better.
It does. It makes it go fast when just one activity that you do, even if you do it every hour of the day, like the kids love those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then the last little.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
You go ahead.
No, I was going to.
You go ahead.
The last little thing that I thought of was that it's like a marathon, in that a marathon runner always thinks about like going slow and steady because the finish is the goal. And we don't always think that way as teachers. We're so worried sometimes about, oh my gosh, the students are not, here it is October and they can't blah, blah, blah. Or here it is November and they can't do this. Oh my gosh, it's February and they can't whatever. And we forget that our goal is really, what can they do at the end of the school year? And so if we could keep our eye on the finish line, we would have a lot less stress during the school year. So focusing on that end of our goal is the finish of the year. And that it just eases our minds the whole year, that if I can just trust the process. If I work with my students every day, if I come in here and we just really enjoy this class, we do all of the activities and things that we have planned, at the end of this school year, my students will have acquired a lot of language, and they are going to be more proficient than when they came in. They're going to have acquired, this material. That will help us relax and really enjoy the process a lot more.
And I also think it's important to remember that, as you think about teaching being a marathon and not a sprint, we need to remember that part of that success at the end of the school year is just showing up every day and giving the best that you have on that particular day. Some days are going to be better than others. That's just the way it goes. But, I mentioned earlier that I've run one 5K in my life. I am not a runner. I hate running. My husband is a runner. He has run marathons and half marathons and lots of shorter races. And so I wanted to try it. I wanted to do this with him. And I remember that my goal, I did not do a very good job of training. I did not show up every day to run. But I did my best. And on the day of the race, my goal for myself was I wanted to just run the entire race. Like, I didn't want to have to stop and walk. I wanted to just run the entire race. And I know for people that are avid runners, they probably think that sounds really lame, but that was what I was. So I was running. My husband was right next to me, and he could have run a lot faster without me, but he was right next to me. And I got to where I could actually see the finish line, right? I can see the finish line ahead of me, and I had been running the entire race. And I was like, I just have such a short way to go. I'm going to do it. I can make it. And I was so close, and I had to stop and walk. And I felt so defeated. I felt so defeated, and I was crying as I crossed the finish line. I was crying because I was so disappointed in myself that I had to walk. And my husband was so encouraging, and he said, who cares if you had to walk? You finished the race. That was great. That was your first race, and you finished it. Don't be upset because you had to walk. Be excited because you finished. And to me, that's a great analogy for teaching. You are going to have to stop and walk sometimes. But you showed up. You showed up.
Exactly.
If you show up every day, walking, running, crawling, whatever the case may be, when you get to that finish line, don't cry. Pat yourself on the back because your kids are so much more proficient at the finish line than they were at the starting line. And that's something to be really happy about and to celebrate.
Agree.
So that's about all our time for today. But Carrie and I would like to thank you for being with us. We just want to encourage you to keep going. And if you cannot keep going because it is not what's best for you and your health, you have our blessing. If you need to take a pause or if you need to do something else, you have our blessing to do that. But if you've chosen this path and you're determined that you want to stay on this path, we want you to know that we're here for you. There are colleagues out there that will show up for you. And we know that there are colleagues in your building too that will support you. And we hope that you find those people, and we hope that you find the mojo that you need, the motivation that you need to keep going. You can do this.
You can do this, and we hope to keep motivating you with our podcast and that you can find other resources like this to draw that inspiration through the new school year. And we hope that this summer is rejuvenating for you and that you'll take lots of opportunities to unplug and to recharge, because this is going to be an important summer to do this. We don't know what next year will bring. We thought that this school year was going to be really, really different, and it was not so great. So we hope that next school year will be, but we want you to recharge a lot so that next year, no matter what comes, you're rested and ready to take it on. Have a great day.
Yes, enjoy your day, everyone, and get some rest. Bye, everyone.
See you soon. Bye.